So, hi everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Angelica. I am the director at Entity Academy. I see some familiar names here, so I've definitely spoken with many of you. First and foremost, we want to thank you for coming. Whether you are a new or returning speaker series attendee, we wanted to welcome you to one of the most important pieces of what we like to call the entity advantage, and that is mentorship. We are thrilled to have Dr. Jeanette Winters joining our fireside chat this evening to talk about three critical soft skills that will help you stand out from your peers. Discernment. Dr. Winters is a Fortune 100 talent management executive with over 20 years of expertise in staff recruitment, retention, performance management, talent management, and leadership development. All that to say, she's an innovative executive leader with global expertise for Fortune 500 leaders, including Intel, American Express, Pitney Bowes, and Amgen. And most importantly to us, she's also an entity mentor, one of the many fantastic executives and leaders joining us in our mission to advance women in the 21st century workforce. And developing soft skills is one of the main pillars in Entity's four-pillar education model. And we are honored to have Dr. Winters here to give you an idea of what executives are looking for in a potential employee. Right now, you'll see that there are fewer than 20 people here, and we intentionally limit the capacity of our firesides to ensure that our mentees are experiencing a much more intimate conversation, one that allows them to glom onto and really personalize the advice during these mentor sessions. So take great notes, take advantage of this opportunity to learn, to grow, and to also ask questions at the end if you didn't get a chance to submit your questions. With that, I will pass it over to our speaker for the evening. Feel free to please unmute yourselves and also give a very warm welcome to Dr. Jeanette Winters.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, geography, time zone. It's great to be with you and spend some time. So right away, let's change the rules. I know that we said we were going to hold the last 30 minutes for questions, but let's make this interactive. So just ask your questions as they come up. I've got the questions that were submitted, and I'll cover those at the end or if they pop up before. But let's start off by using our technology. And why don't you all drop a note into the chat and make sure that you use not only the panelists, but make it available for everybody so that we can see where you're ringing in from and why you joined today. What is your pleasure and what do you hope? I'll be first and say I'm coming to you from Walnut Creek, California, and I have described this the material that we're going to go through in the perspective of recruiting. And so keep in mind that you have to go through somebody like me or my staff to get the job you want. And so that's the perspective from the business end that we're going to cover today. So I don't see anybody ringing in. Oh, there we go. Englewood, okay, not too far. There we go. Rochester, New York. That's a cold place. All right, we've got Worcester, Mass, Torrance, California. Okay, Atlantic City, near my home. I grew up in Ocean County. Buffalo, cold place. Charlotte, Cummings, Georgia, LA. All right, Atlanta. Just got off the phone with Atlanta. Sydney, Australia. Oh, how fun. One of my dear clients is in Sydney. So I know it's an ungodly time of the day or night there. So we're very thankful that you joined. Nashville, Providence, Rhode Island. Great place. Best clam chowder I've ever had was in Providence, Rhode Island. So, all right. Well, let's get cracking here, guys. And I appreciate you using the chat. Anybody that wants to post a question at any time, do so, or just put yourself, unmute yourself, wave at me. I'll try to be attentive so that we can, but I can't see all of you at one time. So if you want to be heard, say something and you'll pop up on my screen, okay? So what brought you here? How many of you are looking for a job right now? Just raise your hand and I'll take a look to see. How many of you, anybody looking for a job? Oh, we have a couple people that are looking for a job. Well, the truth of it is, we're always looking. We never know when we're going to need one or if we want a different one. So it's a good idea to keep some of these things in mind. And so there's a 4-part approach to filling a job or to looking for a job. And it is, what is the job and can you do it? The second thing is, what does the team want in a new member? Do you like these people? Will they be fun and productive to work with? Will they teach you something? What about the manager? What type of manager is this person going to be? There are people that I will work for and I'll wash dishes for them. But there are people that could stand on the opposite side of the street with $1 million check and I won't walk across. Choosing who you work for, your manager, is absolutely essential to your career success. And then the culture of the company. So those are the 4 things that you should be looking at, because frankly, they're the 4 things the company is looking at when they are looking at hiring people. So just a little about me. I am a first timer. I'm a first time family college graduate. And as my mother says, and then she goes off and gets a doctorate, right? And that's important because if you're a first timer, you've had to wrestle with the things that are unknown and you don't have any role models to go back to. When I was applying to college, my family had never done that. They couldn't help me. And so I talked to friends, I talked to people in the guidance office. But when you're dealing with the first time issue, that means you have to learn everything there is to know about it, and that makes it tougher. So understand that about yourself and know it can be overcome, but just give yourself, that boost, knowing being a first timer is a little harder than for somebody who has others in their family that they can turn to. Now, I have been driven to learn my entire life. It's what I love. What I have been called to do is to help people optimize either their own productivity or the organizations they work for. I work in technology, I implement new systems, and manage large, massive change initiatives. My experience has driven me to help individuals through coaching. And I do that through teaching and coaching and actually coaching on a one-to-one basis. And that's really how I arrived at the material, in addition to sitting here interviewing people all day, every day at times. That's how I came upon the material that I'm about to cover with you. So I'm going to share my screen. That's okay, Angelica. We're going to go right here. It's working. This is such a good sign, ladies. Okay. So I have to tell you that I love the piece that the entity team assembled announcing that we were going to get together today, except for one small item, and that's this word right here, soft. I never use the phrase soft skills. We're going to talk about why in just a moment, but let me say, the reason that I don't like this phrase is a key tenet of what I hope you'll take away today. Now, there are 3 things, well, there's probably 30, but there's 3 things that I hope you'll really embrace as we chat. What are service skills? Why do they matter for the employer and for you? And then how do you embrace service skills to be your superpower? And let me tell you, they are a superpower when they are the top of mind. Now, the program says that we're going to have saved the last 30 minutes for questions, but please ask as we go along way. Raise your hand, drop a question into the chat. I'll try and monitor that as we go along. And but simply weigh in using your voice. We're a small enough group that we can do that. Now, if we start to run out of time, or I know we'll be covering something later in the presentation, I'll ask you just to hang tight and we'll get to it, but we will cover your questions, okay? Everybody ready to go? Let's do it. Okay, so the original title, Developing in-Demand Soft Skills to Stand Out from the Pack, Collaborate, Communicate, Discernment. So, as I said, we never use soft skills, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's look at this comment, this quote from John Maxwell. Does anybody know who he is? Who is he? Somebody share. If anybody's talking, it sounds like we've got somebody you're very faint in the background. But let me tell you, he's been called the #1 leader in business by the American Management Association. And Inc. magazine has declared him the world's most influential leadership expert. Now, I'm not willing to go that far, but I will tell you that he does have a handle when he says that nobody gets anywhere in life and by themselves. Well, we're gonna go back here. And so that's what I want you to understand. We are all in this together. So let's treat it as a team sport, okay? Now, the thing of it is that the way we connect, that the way we align or live and work matters. We are neurobiologically wired to be together with other people. That means that our brains are wired to need other people. If we've learned anything from 2020, it's that we have much to improve on, and especially how we cohabitate on this place we call Earth. So don't look at the term soft as the only way to look at what we're going to talk about today. Look at the definition, and yes, this comes from the Oxford Dictionary, but easy to mold, cut, compress, fold, not hard or firm to the touch. What it means is that it bends to the will of others. Soft skills, personal attributes, miscongeniality. That's what we're really looking, harmoniously working effectively with others. Sorry, guys, that ain't enough for today. The reason that I want us to look at service is that it is action oriented. Soft skills to me basically says we know how to play well together in the sandbox, but service is focused on others and it's action oriented. Service skills recognize that we must rely on one another to survive, to grow, and to thrive. So, Angelica, if you could look at the chat for me, that would be great. So for me, soft skills are whether or not you know how to use which fork at a formal dinner. But the truth is that service skills are about living and working together and doing it well. Does somebody have a question?
There's nothing in the chat. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. All right, onward. So what are service skills? Yes, they fill up a page. There are really 4 categories. And this is why I really want you to think about these 4 categories. So the overarching descriptions of these and the things that are in each of the categories, attitudes and emotions. This is one of the things that gets people fired the fastest. So be really careful about this one. It's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing yourself well enough to manage you and your emotions appropriately. The business world needs you to manage yourself. Oh, and by the way, leave your parents, your significant others, your spouses, and everyone else out of the equation, because this is about you. And then we have the respect for community. Remember where we started off, service to others in a meaningful manner, respect. Translates into appreciation that others live and work differently than you may. You may not agree, but the choice is theirs, and we must respect that. The third is personal accountability, doing what you commit to do gracefully and without rancor. Did you ever have somebody, passive aggressive? They say, oh, of course, sure, I'll do it. Their heart's not in it. They do, a half done, half not done job. It's really not even worth having them there. And so that's why I say with grace, without rancor. And then finally, teamwork. And this is a killer. What you want is that you need to know how to get work done, get it done well, on time, and actually solve the problem or the issue before you. Managers despise, emphasize that, having to mediate disagreements, intervene with team members when they aren't getting along or are warring. And I must ask you, what is there to war over at work? We really need to get our heads screwed on. You know, a recent research shows that if you can emotionally regulate yourself, it results in a much higher degree of innovation, of collaboration, creativity, and enables you to thrive. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is worth being able to manage your emotions. Okay? Now, let's press on. We're going to deal today with three of them that are absolutely critical. And unfortunately, all too many people do a very poor job with them. Two of them you'll know right away. The third one may be new: collaboration, communication, and discernment. Now, why are we going to focus on these? Because employers are aching to find prospective employees who possess these skills. Now, do they call them this? Probably not. Will they ask you about them? Not directly, but you can bet that they're going to be looking to see how they can test you, how they can evaluate to see whether you're really a good team player or not. And everyone's definition of that is different. But how come are they so important? And this is where I need you to lean in and really pay attention. Hiring is not a science, it is an art. The Society for Human Resource Management last year did a study. 46% of all new hires will fail within the first 18 months on the job. What that means is virtually 1 out of 2 people hired will not be employed in 18 months by that same company. 26% couldn't accept feedback. 23% were unable to understand and manage their emotions. 17% lacked the motivation to excel. That's one I don't get. I just don't. Why wouldn't you want to excel? And finally, 15% had the wrong temperament to do the job. Now, employers know that they need these skills, but they don't necessarily know how to recruit for them or even test for them. So if you understand them and exemplify them, you're going to be a standout. And that's what we're talking about here today. Remember how I said there's nothing soft about these skills? If virtually 1 out of 2 fails within 18 months, that's your job. That's your reputation. That's your page, am I right? So why do you think employers would even be? Yes, go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody had a question. Well, we'll press on. Why do you think employers would be interested in these skills? Chat, raise your hand, or just jump in. Why do you think employers would be interested? Hmm? Okay, we have somebody in the chat. It makes their lives easier. Dang straight. Why else? We get more done together than we do alone. No question about that. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else? Oh, you bet it leads to general productivity, and we're going to talk about productivity in a minute. Okay, these are all good. Focus on performance out, and if that were only true. But you get the idea that these are business issues, and that's why they need these skills. It's not just peace in our day, right? Okay, so you know why you want to excel at these skills. You want to keep that job that you work so hard to get. So why does your employer worry about these? Bottom line, profitability. I can say it again, and I will repeatedly. Bottom line, profitability. Service skills equals an increase in profitability. There are only three resources that businesses have: time, money, and human capital. Hire and fire, lost time, added expenses, lost opportunities. Hire, fire, it's expensive. One of my classes at the University of Houston did a short, relatively short research project. They observed a manufacturing company, a plastics manufacturing company for about 6 months. And what they found was absolutely astonishing. And they reported these data to the CFO, the CEO, and the chairman of the board, and all agreed that they felt that the findings were accurate. They calculated that every employee who was disengaged, who was one of those hapless employees who really didn't care about their job, cost that company $330,000 annually. Excess, everything from excess absentees. They had lower quality on the job. They had greater safety issue concerns. There was a plethora of issues why it costs employers that much money when you have people who really don't want to be there. So, of course, employers are going to want to avoid that. It absolutely is important. Why else are they concerned about this? We almost don't have to go through the rest of these things, but understand that all of these things are important. We've had significant social and political evolution this year. I say evolution, knowing very well that many of us might label that what we've seen in 2020 really equates more to a revolution than evolution. But within business and industry, it is evolving. Change is happening at warp speed. Automation, data analytics, Yahoo, digital commerce. These are all things where we see the workforce changing. Global nature of business. I was chatting with Angelica and Maria before you folks joined us that our daughter is an emergency room doc. And yeah, we've worried about her for the last 11 months. And she did get both of her vaccines, and by Thursday she should be at about 90% immunity. So we're really happy about that. For her birthday, she asked us to buy these head caps that would cover her long and very thick hair, and so that to make it as part of her personal protective equipment. So she said they're on Etsy. So we go out, we buy them, and we find out that they're coming from Lithuania, one of the Baltic states, halfway around the world. They got to her in about 10 days, and they were beautiful. I mean, they were exactly what she needed. But business, even at a small Etsy-like store, has gone global, and we need to be prepared for that. Consumers expect more, they demand more, and their expectations are constantly morphing. They want to see chatbots. They want to know that they have access to immediate customer service. This is a different world we're living in. Working together, key. COVID changes everything. So remember that just when everything seems to have changed, we know we go back to the prime mission, which is for business and industry, is to make money. So here are the business imperatives. Bottom line, these three factors that we're looking at, the trust, engagement, productivity, all aligned with collaboration, communication, and discernment. Well, you dig into the human side of business, and the more we learn, the more we know that when people trust, and that gets into the ability to better collaborate, when they are engaged, it also is better at communication, and when they are discerning, they are more productive. What does this mean? This is a cycle where they make more money. So money is central to the role and mission for most of the organizations that each of you on this call are likely to go to work with and for. So, the key for us to consider, of course, is that these factors, they require trust, engagement, resulting in higher levels of productivity. But more needs to be learned here. And yet we do know that those with strong service skills, as I've mapped out for you, result in bottom line improvements and enhancements for companies. So this means more money for them. You're more likely to be the 1 out of 2 that stays employed. Do any of you have stories that you can share about how trust, employee engagement, or productivity because of service skills actually made your job easier or more difficult? Does anybody have an example you'd like to share? Well, while you're thinking of one, I'll share one that I've had. So I have a client it's a 30-year-old company, mid-size, privately held in Arizona. They have always had a no working at from home policy. And it was really more than that. It wasn't just no working at home. It was no way, not on your life, won't hear of it, don't even raise the topic. Then, of course, the state mandate came out where everybody was going to be working at home or shut down operations. Boy, that's a tough one. So the CEO and his C suite started to make preparations to actually shut down the company. Well, the chief of staff, who is absolutely a trusted individual, came to them and said, I have a plan that will keep us working, keep us open, meaning, engaged and productive, but from working from home. We don't have to shut the company down. Well, the CEO and his colleagues sort of were growling, but they trusted her and they knew that they could listen to her. So what they did is she said, here's the plan I've put together so that we can work from home and not shut down. Well, the whining and the grumbling went away pretty quickly because here's what happened as a result of her plan. They closed 2020 at a 28% higher level of productivity. What that means is revenue than they had the year before. Think about that, 28% increase. And so the fact that she was trusted and she engaged people, not only the C-suite, but also her colleagues, enabled them to be 28% more productive. She is a massively impactful change maker. Don't you want to be like her? I know I do. I really respect her, and she's earned it. So let's move on. Now, it is interesting, but I love this quote. It's not about the pieces, but how they work together. Few people know about the company that they really work for. When I was in charge of the call centers at American Express, there were 34 of them in the US and in Asia. And each team was specialized. Some dealt in billing, some dealt in disputes, others dealt in the actual allocation and alignment of credit limits. They all handled their part of the transaction. And then if it butted up against another department, they would transfer it. Well, that's all well and good. But one of the things we were looking at is how could we improve customer satisfaction? And we knew that transferring calls reduced your ability to be rated excellent by almost 50% right out of the gate. So we had to find a way of not transferring calls. So we got everyone together and said, this is customer service A to Z. And what that did is it gave them a perspective of what the customer was doing relative to it might have been a billing call. It might have been a credit call. It might have been a dispute call. But because they understood more, they still specialized, they were able to transfer calls fewer. The calls were shorter. The customers reported a higher level of service because they were better understood, irrespective of the department that answered the phone. So let's get into our agenda today about the 3 skills we're going to talk about. And the first one is collaboration. And what does this mean to you? Now, I'm going to amp this because collaboration isn't good enough today. We're going to talk about colossal collaboration. And this is more than just working together. It's more than just being part of a team. It's more than just getting your job done. Well, what is it? What it is, it's getting the entire job done well at a level that might have been unexpected. What does all that mean? Can you think of a time where colossal collaboration really exceeded expectations and did things that had never been done before? Yeah. How about the COVID-19 vaccine? The vaccines that are coming down the line, actually created in less than 1 year, when typically it can be a 5 to 10-year journey. They looked at the end state. What were they trying to accomplish? They addressed it on many fronts. They ended up by looking at how they could confuse the COVID molecule and mask it in different ways. And that is, different ways, yet using existing information. But the key was they fully utilized specialized area of expertise, and they coordinated diverse and dispersed and highly technical contributors from around the world. This is what I'm talking about, colossal collaboration. If you show up just to do your job, that isn't good enough. That wouldn't have gotten the vaccines to where they are today, which are actually going into the arms of people around the country, actually around the world. Amazing things can happen when you work together, better than just okay. With a commitment to succeed that is irrespective of your individual roles, skill, or level of authority. Now, one of the most important things about colossal collaboration is that it never needs a fixed status or achieve level of work. You're always aspiring for that next, for more, the bigger, the better, and to doing it together. But the only way you do that is if you know and work well together. If you understand what the goals and objectives are, and you know who's supposed to do what and by when. Because it's taking all the pieces and letting the parts multiply the individuals that are working. Now, when you're pulling people together who have very specialized technical expertise, they're going to have different work styles. They may have different strengths. They may have different weaknesses. And we're going to have to give each other feedback to even understand things. But we need to understand and be able to talk to one another so that we know how to get the best from each other. Do you know your teammates well enough to ask these questions? Do the answers ever change? Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that is most challenging in school, at entity, and at work is working in a team when you don't know people well. One of the things at the University of Houston earlier this year, it's already almost February, but we had the annual seniors thesis business competition. And every senior in the School of Business has to prepare with 3 or 4 others a business case. And they work very, very hard at this, and they interview people, and and their grade, they get a 3 units grade for this project. I'm one of the judges, And so there were 58 teams. It was a lengthy process. Well, early on, one of the first teams came and, they show up about 8 minutes early so that they can make sure the technology's working and all of that. And the two ladies that showed up, that, they were absolutely ready to go, except one of them said, Dr. J, we need you to understand that one of our team members dropped out a couple of weeks ago and we had to pick up her sections. This is a lot of work, folks. This is not something in the last couple of weeks you want to be doing. And so we said, okay, well, how did you do that? And they said, well, we split it up amongst the three of us. And I said, well, where's the third? And so they said, oh, she'll be here. She's just running a little late. Well, we called her, they sent her text messages, they emailed her, and she never showed. So here, these two women were sitting there all by themselves. Now, this is a very extreme example of where collaboration completely falls apart. But I asked them afterwards, did you expect that the first young lady that dropped out might? And they said, yes, she was flaky all through the semester. I said, what about the other gal who you expected to come? And they said, we always had the feeling that she wasn't committed. Well, she wasn't. Now, the two young ladies got a passing grade and they will graduate, but their lives were made much more difficult. And we do that in the business world every day to one another. And that's why I'm saying, if you commit yourself to colossal collaboration, you will always do your best and never be satisfied with just enough. I'm not getting any questions or comments, so I'm just going to plod along. But if you want, just shout out and we'll certainly answer your questions as we go along, okay? All right, so the next one is communication. Oh, love this graph. What does this graph say to you? For me, it's a visual that the global nature of communicating to people. We have somebody from Sydney, Australia with us today. That's a long, long way away, 20 hours by plane from the West Coast. Great when you get there. But the distance has been shortened through technology. All that's well and good, except now information is exchanged more informally, less on a far more frequent basis. And remember that, for example, that Facebook posts 3.5 billion posts every day. We are deluged with information and social fluff and flutter. So let's talk about communication. Now, I suspect what you're thinking is, I know how to communicate. Yeah, okay, great. Let's dig deeper because communication has changed. And in 2020, I will tell you that there have been very deliberate shifts in the way that we have been communicating, particularly in the business world. It's due to technology, it's due to access, and cultural adaptations. So let's look at a couple of styles. And the first one is the journalistic creative action. This typically, the who, what, where, why, and when is not used for selling or closing a deal or even at times really building relationships with kids or spouses or even your animals. This works well in almost any medium, enables brevity, and that's important, but it really conveys facts. Now, the second style that I'd have you think about is the McKinsey PIP. Purpose, importance, and preview. This is a great approach to use when you're trying to bring a coalition together or a team. This serves very well with change initiatives, setting new direction for a team when you are assembling a team or changing team members, because you look at providing context so that everyone understands the role and mission before you. Now, this last one is meant to be funny. I know you've heard it all. Don't say, write, or photograph anything that will embarrass your mother if it lands on the front page of the New York Times or on Facebook. I'll give you an example. I was interviewing a young man from a very prestigious private school on the East Coast. And he had a lovely resume. It was compelling. And on the bottom, he listed his Facebook URL. So, and so I thought, well, he must want me to read that. So I did. And I learned about drunken brawls, binges, party hardy, which was his mantra. And I saw more skin than I really cared to see. So when he came in for the interview, I said to him, "What did you want me to take from your Facebook profile?" And he said, "You looked at it?" And I said, "You had it on your resume." And he said, "Well, I didn't expect you to go there." And I said, "Well, sir, then next time, don't put it on your resume." And that's the message here. Be very careful about what you post out there because its life really extends well beyond the moment that you're intending. Okay, these are styles. Let's look at types. There's social chatter. You get together. Oh, it's a sorority sister. It's a fraternity brother. It's, somebody that you play ball with on 2 nights a week, or somebody you work out with. Or it's the people that you're involved with, family, friends. There's email, the bane of a lot of our existence. Telephone, Zoom, written word, social media. Now, one of the things that I'm recommending you do is become exceedingly clear about the form and medium that you want to use when you are communicating, and how much and to what end. Always remember your purpose. Are you sharing what you did last weekend with your boss? Remember, this is the person who signed your performance reviews, may advocate for you, or perhaps even promotes you. So know where to draw the lines between social interaction and work. And there is a very specific line that is drawn. Now, the other thing is that, especially as you enter in a new environment, either as a candidate or as a newly hired employee, watch what you share. Why do I say that? I will tell you that we very specifically, we ask the executive admins, how did the candidates treat you? When we go out for a meal, we're looking at how they treat the wait staff. Are they polite? Are they, are they gracious, or are they gruff and demanding and snapping their fingers? How do they treat the hotel employees where they're staying when we put them up overnight? This really matters. So wade carefully when you're going into a new arena. Now, there are rules for each type of communication, and you need to learn them quickly and don't ever violate them. For example, I spent 10 years at Intel. It was, it was a rough and tumble environment, engineering, manufacturing, and predominantly male. Emails were predicated on the basis of SAR, situation, analysis, recommendation. They were never more than 3/4 of a page, and that is how you communicated. Yeah, you confirmed meetings, you suggested others that might need to attend, but the SAR format, situation, analysis, recommendation, was really the heart of how we shared information. I go to American Express. About a week into it, I get a call from the CEO, actually, he was the president then, Al Kelly, who's now the CEO at Visa. And he said, "Hey, Jay, how's it going?" I said, "Oh, Al, learning a lot." And he said, "Well, you're getting a pretty definite reputation about your email." I said, "And what's that about, sir?" And he said, "Well, you just dive right in and you get right down into the problem that you're looking at." And he said, "This situation and analysis and recommendation," he said, "is really pretty formal." He said, "We're very social here. This is a very genteel environment." I had to learn very quickly that the first 5 or 6 minutes of every meeting was, "Hey, how are you going? Love the outfit. Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" Very, very social, genteel, unlike where I had come from. Again, the communication, both social chatter, email, even the written reports were very, very different, based on culture. So remember that, folks, because that is important. So remember, choose your medium, be clear about your purpose, and always answer for yourself. So therefore, the so therefore is, what do you want them to do or think or be differently after listening to you or reading something? You're saying, so therefore, I need your direction on this project because of the problems we're having. So therefore, I want to advise you of this hire that we've just made. Be very clear about, call it a bottom line. That's what the so therefore statement is. Identify your audience and the need for permanence. We're not talking about cover your behind, that's CYA, but what we are talking about is knowing that text messages typically, we can always go back and get them, but they typically fall off the face of the earth. We don't really refer to them after we get them, we look at them, and that's the last time that they're of use to us. But understand who you are communicating to, the why, and what you need as a result of that communication. One of the 2020 changes, you need to be brief and be concise. And watch out for subtleties and the cultural or geographic boundaries. It really is important when you're dealing with an international audience. Okay? Now, I don't know, this is a screenshot that I took from Grammarly, which is a little tool. You can get a free version. I use the premium version, which I pay, I don't know, $79 for, because of all the writing that I do. I don't know how I got through grad school without this. This checks grammar, punctuation, word choice. It even picks up in a document if you repeatedly use the same word, or if you use the same word multiple times in a paragraph or in a sentence. It also gives you a reading on whether you're authoritative, whether you are informing, whether you are angry or dissatisfied, whether you're being directive, whether you're being social, or whether you're happy. That really tells you a whole lot. Your document is always clean. You are always in charge of looking good, and that's what you want. Make sure that you understand that the written word is to be used properly. And the instant that I get documents that have spelling errors and grammar issues, it really loses its impact and navigation. So, one last tip. If you find yourself going back and forth on email, stop at the third exchange and then go see the person, or if you can't see them, go pick up the phone and talk to them directly, because there's no sense in trying to resolve an issue over email that takes more than 3 emails. Okay? Now, discernment. This is the one concept you may not have really heard relative to service skills. If you Google the word, there's a number of references that are biblically framed on purpose, adherence to a higher calling, commitment to a given religious path. That's not what we're talking about here. This is a new concept that is emerging in the area of skill building. And what do I mean by this? It really is the ability to judge well, dig deeply, and connect the dots. Now, look at the difference between wisdom and discernment. Wisdom, deep knowledge and understanding. Discernment, making and putting the pieces together differently so that they have greater value and quality on a given subject. You're offering something new as a result of grasping, of perceiving, of using insight, of being discriminating, of choice, and digging deeply. Now, this really means, and the most vivid example that I can think of is if you've ever seen a training, a film of police officer training, where they're going into a building and they know that there are good people, that are in the way between them and harm and the bad people and then bad people. And they have to make instantaneous decisions. They walk in, shoot or not shoot. I don't know if you've ever done this in any of the video games that are out there, but I shoot everybody. It is not within my wheelhouse to discern. I haven't been trained. It is making those life and death decisions just not what I'm good for. But police officers are trained. They work on creating the temperament and the discernment that's necessary to make those instantaneous life and death decisions. So when we talk about discernment, you're looking at the situation and you're digging deeply. You're not just saying yes, no, or maybe. You're trying to turn the kaleidoscope and see different pictures, looking at it through different lenses. That makes you far more valuable than your colleagues that don't do that. It's called connecting the dots, analyzing and reflecting, judging, making a distinction between better, best, and not. It's also embracing personal accountability to make sure that you know how to make the best out of a situation. This is one of those skills that requires development and improvement each and every day. You will become more discerning because of good and bad experiences if you work at it. Now, this line right between my legs, this is not me, but think of it if I were standing left foot on the strength side of the line or the right on the weakness side of the line. Remember, that line is very, very narrow. Strengths taken to excess can be weaknesses, and you really want to know how to balance that line. Now, I've mapped out a pretty healthy agenda of self-awareness and self-knowledge that must be moderated. This picture is really a demonstration that there is a fine line between strengths and weakness. The better you know yourself, the more investment you make in yourself, knowing yourself and developing the skills, the better you'll be to dance on whichever side of the line that line calls for. Now, don't allow yourself the get out of jail card just because you say that's the way I've always been. I've always been impatient. Even as a child, I used to drive my parents crazy with that. I thought it was okay to be impatient because I get a lot of stuff done. Until one day, I noticed someone shrinking from me because I was marching out all the orders and I was ensuring that things were going to get done. But I had not collaborated well with this individual. I had not communicated properly. And I didn't discern that I was appearing not just impatient, but overbearing. This is one of my areas for development. It's something I work at all the time. I'm impatient, but I've asked those closest to me to help me get better. My best friend, my husband, my assistant. So here's my final comment to you, and then we're going to get into questions. You have to learn to know yourself. It's a lifelong journey. Let's say you sit there and you go, I know myself really well today. Great. Start over tomorrow because you'll learn new things. Expect to change. And if you don't, something is wrong. Continue to make meaning with others, for and within yourself. Learn something new every day. You want the biggest competitive advantage? Learn, and learn regularly. Just like you're doing with the Entity Academy, you're investing in yourself. That is necessary, and you should do it regularly. And finally, be kind. Be kind to yourself and to others. Doesn't cost a thing. Yet if you aren't kind, the cost really can be catastrophic. So, questions. I've got some questions that were submitted before we started, but does anybody have questions from the group? You guys still with me?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm all right, thank you.
All right. Do you have a
All right.
question or a
Yes,
comment?
I do. I actually have a question. I thought that if I was to type it in, it would take a long time.
Okay.
So I thought maybe we could just have a direct conversation, if that's okay.
It is.
All right. So my question is regarding communication. You know, you
Mhm.
said a lot of interesting things about communication and communicating in the workplace and how it's important. You know, and
Mhm.
in my personal experience, I've had a manager at a new job. Actually, I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to mention the company,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, but I had a manager at the new job, and he wasn't really communicating. Like he wanted me to go to new people. Like I just came into the company. He expected me to go meet new people that I had never met before, which I did. But at some point, I needed his help in like getting to meet people that actually would help me in my job, and he didn't do that. But I felt like it was pushing me to go do it, and I don't know how could I have reacted in that situation. Where you like the new person, and then you see your manager expecting you to do something that's not exactly on your curriculum, like what's expected of you, like in the job design and job description, and then trying to be polite to the manager. So you try to do it and you fail because some of those people, I felt like it was a big, it's a really huge company, and people have different schedules, and everybody have their own, I don't know, goals, and personal goals versus team goals and things like that. And I
Mhm.
had to collaborate with people in different departments. So some of the guys in different departments,
Mhm.
you know, they pretty much didn't reply to my emails. I was requesting access to important resources that I needed to do my job perfectly, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't get that access. And I talked to my manager, and you would talk to me like I'm failing or I'm not doing my job correctly. So my question is, how could I have handled that situation?
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that onboard employees on the basis of we're going to throw them in the deep end and see if they can swim. And and then they're sucked down into the vortex, or the tide pulls them out to sea or whatever, and then we go, oh, they couldn't swim. And then if they ask themselves, well, did we ask people to know how to swim? The point being here that there are times, and it sounds like you encountered one of these, where there wasn't enough thought given to the onboarding process to help you meet and gain access to the information and resources that you needed to do the job. And so I always tell people, it's your job. You want to keep that job, so do what you have to do in order to be successful. Ask people that you did meet, how can I get access to so and so? Ask others around you, I need this information or these resources. Do you know of someone I can go to in this case? And so if your manager won't do it, you've got to turn to others. And it'll be interesting, because what you'll find is that a lot of time people will go, they did that to me too. They just threw me out into the shark tank, and I was supposed to figure it out on my own. And usually there's somebody out there that will give you the clues on where to find the people and the resources and make introduction all about relationships. And that's why, if you don't get it from your manager, take it on your own and go
Okay.
find where it is.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think I've learned. I've learned a few things from what you just said. Because I mean, I did try to push it. And I was successful. In reaching out to. Everybody have their own nature, character. Some people were easy to talk to. Some people were, I could just meet them at the, food court or
Yeah,
break room,
yeah,
and then we just strike up a conversation. But there were people whom I felt they were kind of standing in the way in some sort, and that's where I feel like I lost it. Meaning that I don't feel like my manager. Uh, I don't think that I did a good job in that perspective. But I see what I could have done instead. Like probably talk to other people to have to ask for their help, and so that's probably something that I should have done. Thank you.
you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So some folks had shared questions beforehand. So, but don't let that deter you. If you have questions from from those in attendance, just shout out or drop them in the chat. I'd appreciate it. One of the questions that I got: what are the 3 top skills that translate across all career paths and verticals? I love questions like this, and so I said that the 3 top skills are this. The first one is knowing how to work in a team, colossal collaboration. Emotional intelligence, being able to understand yourself and social situations, how to regulate, and how to identify. It's being self-aware. The third is personal accountability, doing what you say you're going to do, not having to be asked twice, and not to do it with rancor. So it really is important that you know yourself well enough. That I have had employees that every time that they had a bad date, they were a bad employee the next day, and they went out on a lot of dates, and it was so tiresome. And but I'll give you the worst example of lack of self-awareness. Technical organization, just hard charging. Women were a very rare commodity, in our ranks. I had hired an electrical engineer who was working on her PhD. We were putting her through school. Half of her job was devoted to going to class and doing her work. And she would get a year when she completed her comps and had her research approved to actually do nothing but research. So this was just a cream puff of a job for her. Well, she was a woman who was very committed to style. If you think of Cardi B or Kim Kardashian, this was a number of years ago, but she'd probably be the equivalent. She had hair down to her waist. She had, the coffin nails that she had to use a pencil to type because she couldn't type on the keyboard. You can imagine how well that went over. And she wore skirts that were so short that she couldn't sneeze, and she wore tops that were very revealing. And so, she was routinely viewed as not a team player, and she was viewed as not serious employee. She was serious and she was contributing, but she was not sensitive about the way she was presenting to the group. And ultimately, I had a number of complaints because they felt that she was just, she was dressing so inappropriately that they wanted her to understand that they just didn't want to deal with that every day. Well, she ended up leaving and left all of those educational benefits and the PhD. And I never did hear whether she completed it or not. But she left because she said sense of style was more important to her than getting her PhD. And what I tried to explain to her was that style was okay. It just had to be moderated for the environment. We weren't going out for cocktails and going dancing. We weren't on a date. We were there to work. Most people wore jeans and t-shirts. I didn't care whether she wore a dress, but she just had to moderate her presentation, and she didn't. And she gave up what I consider to be the world because of it. Sad, really sad. Okay, in the chat, as collaboration and communication and discernment are so critical, are many companies now using data science to filter through personality profiles for hiring a good fit? I started, in fact, my career all through graduate school working for a psychometric, one of the world's largest psychometric organizations, which are those that create tests and administer tests. The number, none of you probably even remember this, but we used to have the scan forms that you'd take a number 2 pencil and fill in the bubble. Well, this was the company that created that technology. And so, we did the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, which was an instrumentation that was created by psychiatrists and psychologists. We did a whole host of assessments, and I learned a great deal about personality profiles. The truth of it is, I don't care about your Myers-Briggs because A, I don't believe it's valid, and secondly, it doesn't tell me how you're going to work. What I look for are behavioral profiles that tell me, how do you process data? How do you deal with conflict? How do you learn? How do you deal with meeting new people? And how do you deal with differences? So looking at behavior, not at personality. And why do I say that's so important? When we look at behavior and we say, this is someone's natural state of behaving, this is how they present. Then we look at how they feel they have to present at work. And let's say that the profiles, the natural profile is here and the adapted profile for work is way over here. There's something we call emotional labor, that effort, the energy it takes for you to be how you believe that you have to operate at work. Emotional labor in that extreme situation can only last for about 90 to 120 days without actually rewiring the brain. And so it doesn't make you more like the person you act like every day, but it does cause you to rewire. Why would you do that? What you want is a job where you fit and where you are accepted for who you are. So the personality profiles do not test appropriately for communication, collaboration, or discernment, but the behavioral assessments that are out there, and there's thousands of them, do. So next question. What separates a leader from a manager? Ooh, this one's, I had slides that I could share with you on that. I'm teasing, I won't. I do have slides, but I won't share them. So a leader is someone who creates change. They build culture. They set vision and strategy. They align, motivate, and inspire. Managers create order. They plan, budget, organize, they schedule, they staff, they control, and problem solve. So leaders envision and managers create the order to get things done. So I don't know what was behind that question, but that was one of the questions that was asked. So, how can I teach students about conflict management when issues arise in their group project teams? I hate group project teams because, as someone who is always driven to get an A on everything, because I was a scholarship student, I had to get good grades or I wouldn't be there. For me, it is really about the constructive confrontation approach, providing a safe environment with when issues do arise. So that doesn't mean you bring a team of 20 in. It's the 2 people, maybe the 3 people who are having the conflict, and in a safe environment. They may need somebody to mediate, maybe not. But the second thing is they need to jointly define what the problem is. And folks, focus on the problem, not the person. So it's not that you dislike me because of my slides, but what you say is, I find your slides difficult to read because of the black background and the white letters. Yep. Why Are We Yelling by Buster Benson? Yep, that is absolutely good for this too. You're right. The third thing is create the solution together. So safe environment, joint definition of the problem, and create a solution together. That is how you deal with conflict management. And in fact, that comes from the Harvard Negotiation Project. And frankly, that's how they trained the Palestinians and the Israelis that were living and working together right on the in the Gaza Strip area. They very successfully have used this form of constructive confrontation and conflict resolution so that these two groups can get together. If they can do it, I assure you that working on a group project at the Entity Academy, it'll work just fine. Anybody else that in the online today that has a question you want to ask? Okay, let's see. So sometimes here's another one that somebody submitted or in advance. Sometimes people let the fear of the unknown stop them from moving forward or leaving a role position for a new one. Did you ever have this fear? Yes. If so, how did you get past that initial fear? Well, the thing that I always tell people, and one of my mentees that I've been working with in 2020, she just got her dream job last December. So she has taken flight. But she was in a position, and but she is in healthcare. It is a very, very high stress position. All of healthcare is high stress right now. There are patients coming out of the woodwork galore, explosive work schedule, overtime all the time, understaffed, everybody's coming in sick. I mean, and before she got her vaccine last month and this month, she always worried about getting COVID and bringing COVID home to her family. So she came to me and she said, I am going to quit. And I said, okay, and where are you going? She goes, I don't know, but I just can't stand this place anymore. So I said, what are you running away from? She sat back in her chair and she got very quiet. She said, there's too much all around me that I can't control. And I said, well, why do you think it's going to be any different? You're still going to be the medical professional that you are when you go to, another hospital or another department or whatever. And she said, I just need to get away. And I said, so you're running? And she got very quiet and she said, yeah. The key to this story, don't run away from something, run to something. And so you should be looking and analyzing on a regular basis. Are you being given the opportunity to bring your best? Are you using all of your skills? Are you engaged? Do you feel a sense of personal ownership? Are you ready to do the next bright, biggest thing? If you can't answer those questions affirmatively, take yourself off to, the woods or the beach or the desert or wherever you go to reflect. And ask yourself, what kind of, what are you doing? And what, and for me, I have always created fun and new things for me to do. So I'm never bored. But the question is, am I doing the best, using the best of myself with these things that I create for myself? Maybe not. That's when I say to myself, I can't look in the mirror and say, I'm so excited about going to work today. I know when I can't do that, it's time for me to leave. Not run away, but to figure out what and why so that I run to my next chapter. Make sense? Okay. We got someone online here. Let's see. How do you recommend approaching this productive style of conflict resolution when the other person involved is management? Well, a lot of times it is management, but remember, you have a greater stake of ownership in that relationship than the manager does, because they are the ones that evaluate you. Now, you may get to, offer 350, 360 feedback about them. The long and the short of it is, it's in your best interest to try and make that relationship work. And you need to go the extra mile of resolving the conflict, because if you don't, you're going to get stuck, and you don't want that. Okay, can you share a time that you hit your breaking point and needed some kind of separation? What did you do at the time to help focus on your mental health and get yourself back on track? Yeah, I'd been at American Express for 5.5 years. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, we did some of the most amazing work of my career, but we were there during the credit crisis. And so new legislation had come out. And for 1 year and 9 months, every Thursday night, we met from around the world and got the marching orders from the attorneys on how we had to implement the Frank Dodd legislation, which changed the credit card industry from top to bottom. We had to stop using certain phrases that had been used, like variable interest rate. American Express had used variable interest rate, so had everybody else, for decades, 40 years. $5,000 fine if you used that phrase. So it was not a good idea to use it, right? Every Thursday night, the attorneys would say, okay, this is what we've been told by the federal government this week. My team and I would go back. We always have a break for dinner Thursday night. Then we'd come back and say, okay, this is what we have to do, because we had to train thousands of people in dozens of places. I did that for 1 year and 9 months. When we were done and we had fully implemented Dodd-Frank, and everybody was humming, we had accomplished all of our goals, I stepped back. I had taken off. I had worked every single day except for 2 days when we thought my grandmother was passing, and I went to see her in the nursing home. 2 days out of 1.5 years. I was absolutely exhausted, and I just couldn't find the energy to come up with even good ideas anymore. And I've got good ideas all the time. At least I think they are, right? But that's the excitement that I get out of my work, because I get new ideas and I run with them. Well, so I took a self-funded sabbatical. I said goodbye to American Express. I stayed, make sure that, they had my replacement, that they could function without missing a beat. And I took off 6 months. I had 2 things that I had to take care of. One was personal. The other was a project that I'd been working on for over 6 years. I'd been trying to, I was working with the Assistance Dog Institute in Santa Rosa. And we trained people how to train service dogs for persons with disabilities. We needed a certain accreditation. And I knew that if I just had uninterrupted time, I could get it over the finish line. And guess what? I did. 6 months later, I moved on and I took the job at Pitney Bowes. So for me, it was getting to a point where nothing tasted good anymore. No matter the exercise I was doing didn't feel right. Riding the horses that I had, nothing brought me joy. And for me, it was, I have 3 measures of whether or not things are going right. Can I look in the mirror and look back at the person who's looking at me? Am I getting joy out of the things that I love? And the third thing, on my 4-poster bed, how many days' clothes are hanging there? So that's how I knew it was time for me to leave, and I did. It's different for everyone, and I understand that. But that's where you need to know who you are and what matters to you.